Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. Friend of mine. He is a steadfast guy when it comes to all things Trump International because his name is Eric Trump. Eric, how are you? Good to see you.
Doing well, Joe. It's good to be on, my friend.
You know, it's really good to see you. I feel really bad about what you're going through, but I got to tell you, man, I see your pictures. I see you on Hannity. I see you all over the place, and I have never seen somebody who is more steadfast in the face of a storm than you are. I'm not kissing up. I mean, you could easily get mad and yell at people and go crazy, but you're steadfast in this is right and this is wrong. Where do you get that? Is that from dad? Is that from mom? Where is that?
Yeah, it's probably from both of them. It's certainly genetics. It's also definitely, part being stubborn. I understand this game very well, Joe. We didn't understand the political game when we first got into it. I understand it, incredibly well now. They will do anything that they will, that they can to win. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal. Power is corrupting to these people, and they will do whatever it takes. And you see that every day. Look what they're doing to my father in New York right now. I mean, look at these crooked judges. Look at the political influence. Look at the calls being made to them, telling them to rule in certain ways. I mean, it's unbelievable. I never thought I'd see corruption like this in my life. You have judges that are being handpicked to take certain cases where statistically they get every single Trump case, and that just couldn't be possible, right? With the benches as large as they are in New York, it's really interesting that the one Trump-hating judge just keeps on coming up and up and up over and over and over.
Right.
It's remarkable, Joe, and it's very sad. But we saw it very early on. They did the whole Russia hoax. I remember I was the guy that got the call. I hear you have secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower that are communicating with the Kremlin. I mean, you literally can't make this up. And I go, nope. First of all, we don't have servers in the basement of Trump Tower. Second of all, we don't know a single person in Russia. This is not our thing. It's not our place. And we're certainly not communicating with the Kremlin. And I would probably know because I run the company. And, all of a sudden I had to battle 3 years of Mueller and all that nonsense. And we saw impeachment 1. We saw impeachment 2. We saw how Supreme Court justices were treated. You saw, manufactured outrage after manufactured outrage. And then he comes out of office and they weaponize every DA, every attorney general in the country to go after him. They go on these fishing expeditions. They make us go to the Supreme Court. They gag him. They take him off his social platforms. They take him off Facebook and they take him off Instagram. And, they make him go open his own platform so he can communicate to, the 80 million people who would walk to the end of the earth for the man. I mean, I've seen the game, unfortunately, and, we have no other choice. We have to fight, and we believe, and we know we're right, and I know we're going to win this again.
Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization, it's Eric Trump. Of course, he's the son of former President Trump and hopefully future President Trump. I want to hit on something that you mentioned very quickly. The Russiagate hoax, the Russia hoax, you still have Adam Schiff is still in Congress. He's just sitting there like nothing happened. He lied for 6 years. But then let's get more specific about who was trying to tie your dad and your organization to Russia. His name is Jake Sullivan. He was on the Hillary Clinton campaign. He's now the National Security Advisor, Eric. And then Anthony Blinken, he's the guy that came up with the 51 signatures that said that Hunter Biden's laptop could be Russian disinformation. He's the Secretary of State. So this is so deep-rooted. The tentacles are probably way deeper than you and your dad thought at first. Should he win again, can he clean house and really get rid of the deep state?
Oh, trust me, he will. He will. No different than Laura went to the RNC and cleaned house with all the people that were, frankly, rhinos, right? And by the way, she just reported, the first month fundraising numbers. They raised $65 million, which is the largest sum ever seen by the RNC.
Amazing.
And that is an organization that is dedicated 100% to seeing Donald Trump, win the presidential election. She's absolutely killing it, but that's exactly what he's going to do. And you forgot about a bunch of people in there. I mean, look at Strzok and Page. Remember the FBI lovers who... Yeah. We'll ensure that he doesn't win. We will absolutely ensure. We have an insurance policy to make sure Donald Trump doesn't win. I mean, coming from, to top of one of our largest law enforcement agencies in the country, that's awfully concerning when you're saying that. And yeah, the whole thing was manufactured. And in fact, Podesta and that whole group, the whole campaign group, they were writing about this in emails. Remember when Podesta got hacked? And,
yes.
They were talking about the October surprise and how do they define the October surprise? The October surprise is something that happens in late October. It's so late that it does so much damage that even if it's not true, the candidate that is obviously otherwise being attacked doesn't have time to prove that it's not true, right? So the damage is done regardless of whether there's any validity behind the accusation or not. That's what the Democratic Party does. Make no mistake, Joe, and I hate being a cynic because I'm not a tinfoil hat wearing person, but they already are lining up their October surprise. They're going to have one in October. They'll probably have one in September, right? They have their game plan. They had Russia baked. You had people who were writing dirty dossiers about my father saying the unthinkable.
Yeah.
The unthinkable. And there's no accountability. In fact, Michael Sussman, we went and he admitted that he brought this to the FBI. He admitted he brought it to the FBI as a quote unquote concerned citizen, not in his capacity as working for Hillary. He was getting paid to bring lies to the FBI. And by the way, the FBI could have disproved the Russia hoax in about 3 seconds.
Immediately.
And they let it go on for 3 years.
Well, they were behind it. James Comey was behind it. James Comey lied to the FISA court. James Comey, Andrew McCabe, we can go down all of them if you want. Brennan, Clapper, they're all a bunch of liars. And the one objective was to make it look like somehow Russia controlled your dad. And by the way, a few weeks ago, Putin said, I prefer Biden over Trump because Trump is too unpredictable. So, I mean, there's never been any there, yet they're still doing it. They've got Russia collusion 2 happening right now. Do you even have to defend against that or not?
Hey, listen, this is their playbook. This is what they do. And then, they did the first impeachment, and they did the second impeachment, and then they did these perfectly good phone calls, right? And again, then they weaponize every district attorney. Look at Fannie Willis, right, in Georgia right now, and the lies and deceit, and the lover, and them making what appears to be a tremendous amount of money off of this little inside deal that is very apparent that they had. And
right.
I mean, Joe, it's just it's unthinkable. And by the way, I just want to say, for every attack that you've seen, that you've read about, we've dealt with 1,000 behind the scenes. 1,000 arrows every single day. I mean, I'm probably the most subpoenaed guy in the history of the country.
Wow, they didn't even consider
hundreds
that.
and hundreds of subpoenas. Witch hunts. Please give me every single email that's ever been sent by a company with the word "the" in it, just so they can comb through and see if you ever missed a comma, if you ever missed a word, if you ever said something that was wrong or inappropriate, and we didn't. And despite that, you look at what happened in the AG case in New York, where every one of our banks went in and testified that we're one of the best borrowers that they've ever had. There's no one that ran properties better than us. There's no one who operates better. We paid off our loans ahead of time. Right? We made them hundreds of millions of dollars in interest. We invested hundreds of millions of dollars of our own money into the properties, increasing their collateral value. Everything else, that Trump was the whale, that he was the dream client, no defaults, no misses of any provision of any contract ever. A total love fest. Goes in, testifies. All the banks testify to exactly that. And we get hit by $465 million fine.
It's sick.
Then we ask if we can post a bond. They say, no, sorry, you don't have time to post a bond. Sorry, we're not going to give you a single day to post a bond. So we didn't know what the judgment is. I don't know how you post a bond if you don't know what the judgment is. And if you're given no time to do, I mean, Joe, it's insane. And what the whole strategy is, I mean, this isn't meant to be kind of a bitch fest, and I apologize if I sound like that.
Oh, it's all good.
Their whole strategy is demean him, smear him, back to the Podesta emails, make him seem unstable with the nuclear codes, make him seem like he's going to be a rogue person who's going to, right? Bankrupt him, go after him criminally, go after him civilly, do so in multiple jurisdictions, go after his family, go after his friends, go after his assets, try and seize his assets, go after all the partners he has, the banks he has, the people who love him, and make their lives absolutely hell. Raid his homes, take his medical records. I mean, where do you want me to quell his voice? As I said,
Eric,
before,
every time they do it, though,
take him off of the platforms where he communicates.
Right.
So you had former Twitter that has the Ayatollah
sick
on
it's
their
nuts.
platform, but
it's
you
nuts.
couldn't have Donald Trump, the guy who is beloved by the vast majority of this country. He's stripped of his rights. They would turn down the dials. Zuckerberg was famous for this. I mean, he put hundreds of millions of dollars into making sure that my father wasn't elected, but
yes.
He would turn down the dials. You'd post something that he didn't like, he didn't approve of. All of a sudden, you'd see your engagement go to hell. I mean, you saw it, Joe. They did the exact same thing to you because you were.
They still do it to me. No,
there.
Your dad would come on. I've interviewed him 14 times now, and he would come on the show. He'd invite me to the White House, and suddenly I get 2 shares out of 400,000 followers on Facebook. I mean, literally, they shut. You're saying the dial? They just shut it off. And they basically said Eric Trump can't be seen, Don Jr. can't be seen, Donald Trump can't be seen, Pags Hannity can't be seen, and it's not okay. But I want to talk specifically about Letitia James. You and I both know we have the video that she ran to get Donald Trump. I'm going to sue him. I'm going to get him. He's an illegitimate president. And then she tried to deny that. But Eric, I've got a car out front right now, And if I go to the bank and I say, I want to borrow some money on my car, I think it's worth 20 grand. And the bank says, well, we think it's worth 10. And then I borrow 10. Can I be charged with fraud because I wanted 20? And by the way, I don't think you or your dad did that. Those properties are undervalued, clearly. But let's just make it as simple as possible. If I say I think it's worth this, doesn't the lender then have the right to say I agree or I disagree? Where's the fraud? Where's the fraud?
Do they have the right? They don't have the right. They have the obligation under every banking regulation in the country. And so you'd have the most sophisticated banks in the country, take Deutsche Bank, right? They would go in and they would do their own appraisers, right? So they would go in and they would do an appraisal of a hotel and they would appraise it at fire sale prices. At fire sale prices, right? They don't want to, they're not speculating. They,
Right.
you know, if there's a default on a loan, they want to be able to get out of it immediately, even if the economy's horrible and everything else, right? Then after they appraise it at fire sale prices, you know, then they take an LTV off of that. So say it's a 50% loan to value ratio.
Yeah.
They give you 50% of what that appraisal value is. They make you put in the delta. And so they're beyond secure, right? And then they have every covenant and this and that. We never breached a covenant. We never missed a loan payment. We made our banks hundreds of millions of dollars. They're friends of ours. They testified that we were the best. We are the best. We had the best properties. We were the best at what we did. They loved us. They had great relations. We never misled them. But you have Letitia James and all her infinite wisdom that thinks Mar-a-Lago was worth $18 million. It's probably the most valuable property in the country, one of them. I mean, it's insane. The only two properties that we've ever sold, we sold for exponentially more money than they were listed on the
I just want to know where the fraud is.
condition.
I want to know who's the aggrieved party, Eric. Who's the aggrieved party?
The hotel in Washington, D.C. I sold
I've been there, yeah.
Washington, D.C. for exponentially more than it was listed on the statement of financial condition, but yet the statement of financial condition is fraudulent. Well, that's kind of interesting considering the first page has a disclaimer. It's actually the first two pages. These are our numbers. Real estate is speculative. If you disagree with any of the numbers, you go get your own numbers. Don't rely on our numbers. These are what we think our properties are worth. That can change. It can go up. It can go down. In my opinion, our properties were undervalued,
yes.
not overvalued. They were undervalued. And then they wouldn't even let us, you know, my father's brand was never put in there. He has tremendous brand value for what he's created. That wasn't in there. There was assets that weren't even in the statement of financial conditions that he had. And it didn't matter. Joe, the judge ruled against us before we even got into court. The judge ruled against us before even hearing from the banks. Every person went in and testified that Don and I had absolutely nothing to do with it, right? I go out, I built hotels. Like I'm a builder. I was acquiring hotels, acquiring golf courses. I don't do back office functions.
Right.
Every person, yeah. I mean, nothing was done incorrectly, but Eric had nothing to do with this exercise. This is a paper exercise. That's not what he's focused on. This is a horrible use of my time. Every person testified that I had nothing to do with it. Our outside accountants, all the people in our office. Yet the judge still banned me from doing business in New York for 2 years and fined me $5 million. When he himself knows that we had I mean, they wanted to drag every Trump into a courtroom. They wanted to make our lives hell. She wanted to have a press conference on the front steps of the court every single day. She wanted to fundraise off of me. She wanted to fulfill her promise to go after Donald Trump every single day, sue the hell out of him, and go home. We have her saying that on camera. You know, she was promised something. You just mark my words. She was promised something by Joe Biden and the White House. Her part of the equation was to try and bankrupt my father, to try and take away the very money that he would put into his own campaign. No different than Alvin Bragg. His job was to go after him criminally. No different than Fani Willis. Her job was to go after him criminally, right? This is their plan. This is what they do. It's legal lawfare against a political opponent by a crooked system. We are no better than Venezuela. We're no better than Russia. This can't happen in the United States of America.
I want to go through it.
And by the way, they better believe, you know, the other side will do the exact same damn thing to them, which is also unacceptable. We can't go down this path in America. It's creating a horrible, horrible precedent. It has to stop.
Yeah, there would be no turning back, that's for sure. It's Eric Trump, the son of President Donald Trump, the Executive Vice President Trump Organization. I want to very quickly go through some things because we've only got a couple of minutes left. And Eric, thanks for making time today. Number one, Fani Willis has no case because Trump on the phone call says, I know there are hundreds of thousands of ballots that are in question. I just need 11,780, whatever he said. He's not asking for anybody to manufacture anything. The Jack Smith stuff is stupid. Executive privilege. You've got the Presidential Records Act. There is no espionage, which is he's trying to say. That's a dumb case as well. Even Alan Dershowitz says so. But the Letitia James case is the most egregious. Alvin Bragg has nothing. He's basing it on a federal elections law, and the FEC already said there were no violations. Those three are gone. The Letitia James one really gets in my craw, and it does you as well. How dare she say you can't do business? How dare she say that your brother can't, that your father can't, that you owe $500 million, and she laughs about it and live tweets about it. So the question is, after all that, Eric, are you willing to go to the Supreme Court because due process was clearly violated here and make this woman the example of what you can't do to Americans?
Oh, absolutely, Joe. And by the way, we've won 80%, 90% of the case.
Right.
The appellate division has already ruled that there's a statute of limitations, which throws out 90% of the case. It's just the crooked judge that we are in front of simply would not uphold their own ruling.
Right.
The upper court's ruling, he would not. So 90% of the case has already been won and should have been dismissed. But again, he was told by somebody, go hurt Trump. Hurt him. I don't care the facts. Go hurt Trump. It shouldn't have even been in front of this judge. It should have been in the commercial division in New York, not in front of this guy. But again, somebody wouldn't let it get past him. He held on to the case. He would not let it go. He would not recuse himself. He would not allow it to go to the court that it should have gone to. It was a setup from day one. And so absolutely, we're in the appellate court in New York. They just knocked down the bond amount tremendously, as you know. Everybody knows that this guy is just insane. Everybody knows that this verdict is insane. We've never seen anything like this ever in history. No one's ever had to put up a $500 million bond.
That's
the
sick.
largest companies on planet Earth. You know, when I went out to get this bond, Joe, the surety companies literally said to me, what's the number again? 500 million? They go, Eric, we've been doing this for 50 years. We've never even heard of a bond.
Bernie Madoff had 10 million, Eric. Bernie Madoff, he stole $63 billion or something.
Does that surprise you?
I guess not.
You know,
I mean, see what's going on.
I mean, listen, in New York State right now, you can go shoot somebody in the face in the middle of Times Square, and you go in and they let you go, and you don't have to pay. You don't have to post a bond. The only person in New York State that actually has to post a bond is Donald Trump and our family because it's legal lawfare, and it's crazy. But here's the good news, Joe. I mean, because we've spent a lot of time on kind of the injustices and how insane it is. Every single time they did this to Donald Trump, I mean, it's shocking that the DNC doesn't have smarter people. But every single time they've done this to Donald Trump, his polls have gone through the roof. He is beating Joe Biden in every single swing state. My wife, she's been at the RNC for 30 days. She just raked in $65 million. The RNC has never seen money like that in its entire existence.
It's amazing.
And that's in a 30-day period of time. People understand the game. People are pissed off. There's only so many times you can cry wolf. You can't do a Russia hoax. You can't do a failed impeachment 1, a failed impeachment 2, an attack of Kavanaugh, and then go do 19 nonsense cases and say that they're justified. People don't buy it anymore. People know what's happening in this country, and they're upset. And you have the worst president in the history of the world right now. Everything's failing. Everything. Prices are going through the roof. Americans are hurting. You have got wars breaking out all over the place. You see what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. You see what happened in Israel. Yes. America has no respect whatsoever. We're losing our currency. We're losing our reputation. We're losing our standing. We're being run over by every country. We're being ripped off. We're spending trillions of dollars on nonsense every single day. Our taxes are horrible. Our infrastructure is terrible. I mean, we can't do it anymore. I mean, everything is broken. We can't get out of Afghanistan without totally embarrassing ourselves.
That was disgusting.
Our
military
military
he can be
leaders are
impeached.
spending more time renaming military bases than actually winning wars. Where do you want me to stop? Look at inflation.
Well, Eric, if you look at Afghanistan, he should be impeached on Afghanistan. He should be impeached on the border. They keep on lying that the Republicans in the House are stopping the border from being fixed. That's a lie. Biden did 94 executive actions undoing what your dad did that fixed the border. And in fact, there's an H.R. 2 that the House did pass that the Senate won't take up that codifies everything your dad did into law. Chuck Schumer won't take it up. They lie. Eric, that's the problem. They lie so bad.
Even more basic than that. Let's just, they're evil, but let's just say that they're extremely incompetent and they're worse than that.
Okay.
Right? But at least try and show up. Anytime that there's a problem, where are they? Right? When we had the massive supply chain problem in this country, massive supply chain, you didn't have a 2x4 at Home Depot.
Right.
Where did Pete Buttigieg go? He went on paternity leave, because why wouldn't you leave the entire country with empty shelves? And when they made, Kamala the border czar, what did she do? Her next trip was to Vietnam, because why wouldn't you go to Vietnam when you were the border czar taking care of the southern border? And guess
ridiculous.
where Joe Biden was when Afghanistan was falling? He was in Delaware sitting on a beach, because why wouldn't you be on beach when a 20-year war that's killed tens and tens and tens of thousands of people and millions, if you count all the people over in that part of the world,
right?
And cost trillions of dollars. Why wouldn't you be sitting on the beaches they never show up to the call of duty? They never show up when you need to be present. You have people coming across the border and they want it. I mean, they flew 350,000 people into this country on the cover of darkness on private planes. You know how much that costs? I mean, if you think that the average JetBlue flight has 180 people on it, maybe, right? 350,000 at $20,000 an hour for those flights. Say round trip, they're probably 6-7 hours.
It's crazy,
right? Times how many flights that is, and then obviously the Senate and Congress, they try and propose legislation that they can't spend any money on on flying people in the cover of darkness. And guess what? Every single Democrat votes against it. It's intentional, Joe.
It is.
My father paid for the wall, all the slats for the wall, all the steel was paid for. It's sitting on ranches in Texas right now.
Some of it was sold. Some of it was sold pennies on the dollar. I mean, some of it they sold it.
All they had to do is stand it up, put it in the ground, stand it up. It didn't cost anything else. The contracts were executed.
The contractors got paid, and they didn't do it. The contractors got paid. So it's Eric Trump, Trump Organization Executive Vice President. I've taken up a lot of your time. Let me just ask you a couple of other quick ones, Eric, because we're wound up. Do you think Biden's gonna debate your dad? I mean, if he doesn't, I think he's done. I think he's done anyway. But if he doesn't, that's it. That shows that he doesn't have the cognitive ability to do it.
Oh, he certainly doesn't have the cognitive ability to do it. I mean, what they pump him with, who knows? But he certainly doesn't have the cognitive ability to do it. And I mean, he's truly been a horrible president. I mean, I listen. I'm a quantitative guy. If there was one positive metric that I could point, there are none. I mean, there legitimately are none. The guy's been a disaster. And Joe, what's really sad to me is, we have a lot of properties around the world. I deal with people all over the place, Europe, all over the place, South America, everywhere, the Middle East. And they're literally laughing at America. And it's so sad. I'll ask them, I go, what do you think of the perception of America right now? And they'll just start shaking their head. America's made the whole world worse, just based on poor leadership and frankly, weakness. It's devastatingly sad. The amount of millions of people who have died because of it, Russia would have never happened. The Israeli situation would have never happened.
Never. They were scared to death of what your dad would do if they stepped out of line.
China's looking at Taiwan and licking their lips. And, the whole Middle East is boiling over when you had total peace in the Middle East. I mean, in the last 18 months, my father was in Afghanistan. You didn't have a single service member that died, right? I mean, he bombed the hell out of ISIS, and then he got very, very tough with them and said, listen, don't even think about it. Don't even think about messing with the United States of America.
And all of a sudden, ISIS is back. It's called ISIS-K now or something because of all the equipment that was left in Afghanistan. It's Eric
Trump. By the way, we know Joe, I mean, mark my word, they're coming over the southern border.
Of course they are.
I mean, the Border Patrol will say this. They've caught, many of them, but guess what? Probably 20x that has gotten away. And they're going to do something horrible to this country. It breaks my heart to say that, but how stupid could we be? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Eric, if you don't mind, I got to ask you one last question, and I really appreciate your time and your friendship all these years. Trump Organization Executive Vice President Eric Trump. As a son, and you told me this the first interview I ever did with you 6-7 years ago. You said he's my best friend. You said that your dad was your best friend. As a son, when you see them doing 8 times more than they did to him the first time around. How does that make you feel? I mean, in your private moments, I mean, do you just stay, I'm vigilant, I'm on it, this is a job we've got to get done? Or is it like, I can't believe they're doing this to my dad?
No, it's horrible. Joe, it's horrible. I love the man. Donald Trump's the one person who did not need this job. His life would have been exponentially better going over to Mar-a-Lago, playing golf, having a great time, seeing his grandkids. I mean, he loves this country, and he sees this country going absolutely down the tubes. And we all feel that as a family. But, the man is remarkable. I've never met somebody in my life that has more backbone, that has more fight, that has more perseverance. He's unbelievable no matter what they throw at him. And they wanted to make his life so damn uncomfortable that he would just bow out. No matter what they throw at him, he just will not stop. He's a remarkable person. And our country needs a fighter. I've said that to you a bunch of times. Our country needs a fighter. And, that very same attribute that allows him to go through this hell, the hell that they put him through every single day, the fight that he has to fight through and do so with such a good attitude while campaigning, while going out there, while being positive. He's unbelievable. He is my best friend. I admire him more than any human being that I've ever met. I mean, he's just an unbelievable person. And, to your viewers out there and to you and everything else, I will stand by his side until, the end of my days. I will never, ever leave that stage. I will fight for what we believe in. I don't care what they do to us. I don't care how they try and imprison us. I don't care how they try and, bankrupt us. I don't care what they throw at us. I will stand by his side, and he's a remarkable person, and I couldn't be more proud of the man. I really couldn't. He's, you watch how he's perceived in history because people get what's happening, and he'll be a case study for resilience and perseverance. And I think he wrote a really great book. Well, he wrote 2, right? The Art of the Deal, and then he wrote The Art of the Comeback. I think 2024 is going to be the greatest political comeback possibly in history.
Tens of millions of Americans agree with you. It's Eric Trump, Trump Organization Executive Vice President, son of former President Donald Trump, hopefully future President Donald Trump. Eric, thanks for making time, man. You gave us a good long swath of time today, and the people who are watching and listening really appreciate it, as do I. Thank you, sir.
Joe, thanks so much, my friend.
All right, brother. We're back after this. Stay right here.